The towel dropped from my hands, but I didn't flinch. Her laugh, a dry, hollow chuckle that bounced off the laundry room tiles, hung in the air like mildew. "You're lucky I even let you touch me." That's what Vanessa said. Like I was some leper who'd won a raffle. Like decades of providing, fixing, covering her mistakes, and paying off her credit card disasters were just some pathetic tribute she tolerated out of politeness. She turned away, humming, tossing her blouse into the dryer like nothing had happened. I just watched her. Not angry, not even sad. Something quieter, sharper. I folded the last t-shirt, our old State Fair one, from before her veneers, before her Pilates instructor with the ridiculous name, before she stopped asking how my day was. I folded it with more care than I'd handled her in months. Then I placed it neatly on the stack and walked out. In the hallway, I heard her phone buzz. A giggle. Another message. Another little compliment from whoever she thought was her escape hatch. Her voice changed when she texted lately. Eerier, like she was suddenly 20 again. I used to like that sound. Now it just reminded me how good liars always enjoy the setup. I passed the hall mirror and looked at myself. Wrinkled? Maybe. Slower than I was at 40? Sure. But I built machines that carved titanium to half a human hair's width. I ran a team of 20 men who didn't dare miss a measurement. I wasn't some slob hoping for scraps of affection. In this house, though, I was a placeholder. And placeholders don't argue. We execute. Down in my office, I opened the bottom drawer. That small, smooth oak box I carved after retiring wasn't holding cufflinks anymore. It was holding potential. I flipped open my laptop. No rush, no drama. Just a man doing what he always did, cataloging, protecting, cleaning up someone else's mess. The folder was still there, waiting for the day she smirked one time too many. First up, emails. A realtor friend of hers, Celeste, had CC'd her on messages about fun weekends in Ridge Hill. The dates matched perfectly with the retreats she claimed were mandatory training. One even had a rental car receipt in Vanessa's name with a second driver added. Not me. Then the texts. I'd synced her phone to the family iPad 6 months ago. She never noticed. Thought it was just for Netflix in the guest room. One thread stood out. Her, "Can't wait to see you outside the sheets for once LOL." Him, thumbs up and a mirror selfie from a hotel bathroom. I recognized the wallpaper. The Burstone Hotel, lavender-scented, stale with desperation. I leaned back, my mind already forming the framework. I wasn't going to blow up tonight. This wasn't rage. This was stage one. She came downstairs later that night, makeup off, wearing that smug little robe she always wore when she wanted to play affectionate wife. "You didn't say good night," she said, with that fake concern painted on. "I figured you were tired of touching me." I replied, smiling like I meant it. She blinked, half a second of static between us. "You're being dramatic." I nodded slowly, letting her think she'd won that exchange. Because men like me, we don't need second chances. We need evidence. At 11:17 p.m., the house went quiet. Vanessa was asleep in bed, tablet sliding off her chest while some real estate podcast droned on. Her face twitched in sleep, probably dreaming about a Range Rover, a wine glass, and 100 fake laughs in empty houses. I stood in the hallway for a while, listening to her soft snores. Another message dinged on her phone. I didn't even bother checking. I already knew the sender. Back in the office, I switched on the desk lamp. The oak box sat there, smooth edges and brass hinges I'd polished myself last spring. I'd once planned to give it to her for our anniversary. Now, it would hold her undoing. The printer hummed to life. First batch, Celeste's emails. Then, the forwarded flight confirmations and receipts. None billed to our joint account. Vanessa thought I never checked receipts. She was right. I didn't check receipts. I checked patterns. And people like her always leave fingerprints. Next came the texts. I scrolled the iPad. Took screenshots of the ones with location tags. One message sent from a restaurant 40 minutes away when she claimed she was trapped in a board meeting. The man? A contractor we once hired to fix our deck. I'd offered him a beer in my own backyard. Her tone with him was sugary sweet, a voice I hadn't heard in years. One message cut sharper than the rest. "He's nice but dull. A placeholder." My life started late. Dull. Placeholder. I clicked save, dropped the files into a folder named June Justice, and encrypted 3 copies: flash drive, cloud backup, offsite email. I didn't know yet exactly how I'd use them, but I knew this. By the time I was done, Vanessa would never see me coming. The next morning, she floated into the kitchen in yoga pants and a messy bun, humming some early 2000s pop song like it was still her decade. "Morning," she said, grabbing a mug from the cabinet. I was already at the counter, slicing apple wedges into a container. "Morning," I replied, without looking up. She poured coffee, leaning against the counter with her phone. "You're up early. Trouble sleeping?" "No," I said, sealing the container. "Just making sure everything's in the right place." She didn't even register the comment, just scrolled, sipping her coffee. But the seed was planted. I sat at the table with my laptop, browsing nothing in particular. She went about her morning, not knowing I'd quietly set up a new bank account in my name only, moved my paycheck deposit, and changed every password worth having. Around 10 a.m., I forwarded the fun weekends in Ridge Hill email chain from her friend Celeste to Vanessa's work email. No subject, no message, just the evidence. I knew her schedule. She'd be in a meeting at 10:15, her phone face down in front of her, laptop screen projected onto a wall full of colleagues. Sure enough, at 10:22 my phone lit up. "Vanessa, what the hell is this?" I let it ring. A few minutes later, another message. "Why would you send this to me at work?" Still nothing from me. Silence makes people invent their own punishments. That night, she was oddly quiet at dinner. I didn't force conversation. I didn't even look at her much. It's hard to maintain a smirk when you don't know what the other person knows. When she finally broke the silence, it wasn't about the email. It was about the chicken being dry. I smiled into my plate. Some things just lose their flavor over time. She looked at me for a beat too long, then went back to eating. She didn't know it yet, but I had just started pulling the first thread. By Friday, the change was obvious. Not to anyone else. She was still smiling at neighbors, posting her curated little Instagram stories, acting like she was juggling closings and client calls. But I knew. Vanessa's confidence had always been like tempered glass. Looked solid, but one hairline fracture and it would spiderweb. She started hovering in the kitchen when I got home. Not to ask how my day was, of course. More like she was trying to read the air. Friday night. She poured me a drink without asking. Bourbon, 2 cubes, the way I liked it before I realized she'd only learned my drink order because she'd heard me tell one of her friends at a barbecue. "Long week?" she asked, leaning against the counter. "Not bad," I said. I let the silence stretch. "Anything weird happen at work?" she prodded. I took a sip, shrugged. Nothing I didn't see coming. Her eyes twitched, just a little. I spent Saturday morning doing what she thought was yard work. In reality, I was setting up the next part of my framework. A new home office in the detached garage. Router, printer, lockbox. A workspace entirely cut off from the house's network. Vanessa came out mid-morning in oversized sunglasses, holding her phone like a shield. "Since when do you need an office out here?" "Since I started working on something I want finished right," I said, not looking up from my wiring. "Paranoid much?" she said, half laughing. I smiled faintly. Paranoia is what amateurs call preparation. That earned me a frown. She left without another word. Saturday night, we went to a dinner party at her friend Celeste's. Normally, these events were just wine, loud stories, and mild social climbing. But this one was different. When we arrived, Celeste was in the kitchen. Vanessa kissed her on the cheek like nothing was wrong. But I caught the flicker in Celeste's eyes when she saw me, like she'd just remembered a detail she'd rather forget. Over roast chicken and potatoes, the conversation drifted to weekend getaways. Someone mentioned Ridge Hill. Celeste's fork froze in midair. "Isn't that where you?" she started, looking at Vanessa. Vanessa cut her off with a too loud laugh. "Oh, we've barely been there. Just for a few little conferences." I didn't smile. I didn't even blink. Just set my glass down slow and said, "Funny. I've been meaning to visit, since it's apparently so memorable." The table went silent for half a beat before the subject got changed. But Vanessa didn't touch her food after that. Sunday morning, I made my move. She was in the shower when I set my phone on the nightstand, recording. I took her phone from the dresser, opened her messages, and left it on the vanity. She wouldn't notice. It was already unlocked. From the office in the garage, I could hear her voice faintly through the recording. Low, warm, that sugary tone. Talking to him. When she came downstairs an hour later, hair damp, wearing that smile she only used when she thought she'd gotten away with something, I was already at the table with my coffee. "Who was on the phone?" I asked casually. "Just Celeste," she said, without missing a beat. I sipped my coffee. You know, it's funny. When people lie, they tend to add details nobody asked for. She froze just long enough for me to notice. What's that supposed to mean? It means, I set my mug down. I've been paying attention. The real shift came later that week. She was in the living room scrolling on her iPad. I was at my desk in the garage when my burner phone buzzed. It was from an unknown number. We should talk. Vanessa doesn't know I'm messaging you. It was him, the contractor. The one from the deck job. I didn't reply right away. Let him sweat a bit. 10 minutes later, another message. She's been lying to both of us. I think you should know what's been going on. So I called him. No greeting. No pleasantries. You've got 60 seconds, I said. He stammered through some story about how she'd told him we were basically separated. How he thought she was just keeping things casual. He claimed he didn't know about the Ridge Hill trips. Claimed he thought he was the only one. I didn't buy most of it, but that wasn't the point. What exactly do you want from me? I asked. I think you should know, he said weakly. I already do, I replied. But thanks for confirming the timeline. I hung up. That night, I didn't mention the call. Instead, I waited until we were getting ready for bed and said, You ever notice how people tell on themselves? She frowned. What are you talking about? Like when someone swears they're the only one. It's usually because they're not. Her eyes flickered. I turned out the light. The next morning, I left early, told her I had a meeting across town. In reality, I was sitting in a cafe 2 blocks away with my laptop, uploading every file from my June Justice folder to a private, encrypted drive. Emails, receipts, screenshots, call logs, the fresh audio from the bathroom. I added one last item, a letter. It was addressed to Vanessa's managing broker, detailing conduct unbecoming, with documentation attached. I didn't send it. Not yet. It was just another piece on the board. By Thursday, she was jumpy, checking her phone more often, texting in another room, glancing at me like she was trying to read a language she didn't speak. That night, over dinner, she said, We need to talk. I set my fork down. About. I just feel like you're being distant lately. I almost laughed. You think? She pushed her plate away. If you've got something to say, just say it. I looked her dead in the eye. Oh, I will. I'm just waiting for the right audience. Her mouth opened, then closed. She stood up without another word and went upstairs. I didn't follow her. Instead, I sat there, finishing my meal, mapping out the next step. Vanessa had spent months thinking I was a placeholder. But placeholders, in the right hands, can flip the whole game. And she was about to find out just how far ahead I'd been playing. Friday morning, I pulled into the driveway 10 minutes later than usual, carrying 2 cardboard trays of coffee. One for the crew at my old shop, the other for Vanessa's office. She was still upstairs getting ready when I left the second tray on the front passenger seat of her car. 5 cups, her name written neatly on the lids, courtesy of an anonymous admirer. The note under the drink carrier wasn't mine. At least, she wouldn't think it was. It was typed, no signature, just a message. We should slow down before someone gets hurt. A seed doesn't need to be big to grow. By noon, my phone buzzed with a message from her. Did you put something in my car? I didn't answer. 10 minutes later, not funny. I could almost hear the tension in her keystrokes. That afternoon, I met with a friend of mine, Tom, a quiet guy who happened to be a commercial printer. Tom had never liked Vanessa, mostly because she once called his wife underachieving at a dinner party. He was more than willing to help. In his shop, we ran off 20 high-quality copies of the Ridge Hill emails and the iPad screenshots. Each set was in a plain envelope, labeled simply, for your awareness. One went to her managing broker, one to Celeste, one to the HOA president, who, coincidentally, loved to gossip at the pool. The rest went into my lockbox for later. By Saturday morning, Vanessa was pacing the kitchen like a cat that had heard a noise in the walls. You've been acting weird, she said finally. I didn't look up from my coffee. You think so? I know so. You're not saying something, and I don't like it. I took a slow sip, set my cup down, and met her eyes. That's the thing about not saying something. It's not for you to like or not like. She stared at me for a beat, then scoffed. You're impossible. She grabbed her keys and stormed out, muttering about real work to do. I spent the day in the garage office, going through her social media. She'd been careful lately, nothing overt with him. But her private, close friends' stories on Instagram were another matter. I still had access through a burner account I'd made months ago. There she was, sipping wine with him in a dimly lit booth, tagging it midweek magic. Another clip of them clinking glasses with Celeste across the table. And then the one that sealed it. A blurry selfie of her kissing his cheek, captioned risky business. Screenshots went into the folder. Everything backed up twice. Sunday afternoon, I got a call from an unexpected number. "Hey, it's Ben," the voice said. From the HOA. Ben was the type who lived for drama, but in a cardigan. He didn't waste time. Vanessa's name came up in the board meeting. Something about inappropriate conduct? You might want to get ahead of it. I thanked him, hung up, and smiled. The circle was closing faster than I expected. That evening, I found her on the patio, glass of white wine in hand, staring at the fence. "Rough weekend?" I asked. She didn't turn around. "People are saying things. At work. In the neighborhood. People say a lot of things," I replied. Her shoulders tensed. "Are you doing this?" I stepped closer, leaned against the railing. "Vanessa, if I were doing something, you wouldn't have to ask." She finally turned, eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," I said, straightening up, "when I make a move, you won't be able to mistake it for gossip." Monday morning, I took a detour before work, straight to her office building. I knew the receptionist from a charity golf event 2 years ago. A friendly hello, a quick handoff of an unlabeled envelope, and I was gone before Vanessa even parked her car. Inside the envelope was a single printout, her risky business selfie, time-stamped, with the name of the restaurant it was taken in. A place she had billed to her company card that night as client entertainment. By Tuesday, the shift was undeniable. Her calls to clients were shorter, sharper. She was checking her phone constantly, leaving the room to answer. Her smiles were tighter, her eyes darted more. That night, she cooked dinner, something she hadn't done in months. Halfway through, she sighed dramatically. "I don't know what's going on," she said, pushing food around her plate. "But I feel like you're trying to sabotage me." I looked at her steadily. "You give me too much credit." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," I said evenly, "sometimes people sabotage themselves, and then they need someone to blame." Wednesday was when the first real crack showed. She came home early, unusual for her, dropped her purse on the counter, and said, "I think someone's been in my work email." "Oh," I said, not looking up from my laptop. "Yeah, there are messages missing. Private ones. And I can't figure out if it's IT or," she trailed off, watching my face. "Or what?" I asked. Her mouth pressed into a thin line. "Never mind." That night, after she went to bed, I sent an anonymous email to her managing broker. "If you care about the firm's reputation, you should review the Ridge Hill billing logs from March through May. The receipts will answer your questions." Attached were the hotel invoices, with her signature on the check-in forms. Thursday morning, I saw her car still in the driveway when I left. She texted me at 9:14, "Taking a sick day?" By noon, another text, "We need to talk tonight." I replied, "Sure." When I got home, she was at the kitchen table, wine glass in front of her, papers spread out. "What's this?" I asked. "My life," she said flatly. "Falling apart. Clients canceling. The broker says there's a review of my expense reports. And people are talking." I leaned against the counter. "Tough break." Her head snapped up. "Don't you dare act like you're not involved." I held her gaze for a long moment. "Vanessa, I've been married to you long enough to know how you operate. You build a fantasy, you live in it, and when it cracks, you find someone to clean it up." She pushed back from the table, anger flashing. "You're enjoying this." "Not really," I said, "but I'm not stopping it either." Friday morning, she didn't get out of bed. I left quietly, but before I pulled out of the driveway, I sent one last envelope. This one wasn't for her work, or the neighborhood, or her friends. It was for him. Inside, every screenshot, every receipt, every duplicate of the files I'd collected, along with a short note. "When you're done with her, make sure she pays for her own drinks. BY Monday." She was in full scramble mode. I came home to find her pacing the living room in leggings and a blazer, phone clutched to her ear. Her voice had that brittle, too bright tone people use when they're lying but trying to sound in control. "I understand completely, Rick," she said, pausing for a laugh that didn't match her eyes. "It's just a misunderstanding. The receipts are all legitimate business expenses. I'll clear it up this week." She hung up, exhaled, then caught me standing in the doorway. "What?" she snapped. "Nothing," I said, loosening my tie. "Just admiring how fast a house of cards can come down when the air shifts." Her jaw clenched. You think this is funny? I walked past her toward the kitchen. No, I think it's predictable. Tuesday, she left early, claiming she had an emergency meeting. That evening, I got a text from an unknown number. Guess you've heard by now. I didn't recognize the area code, but the next message made it clear. Vanessa's been suspended pending the audit. She says it's a setup. I smiled. Not because she was suspended, though I won't lie, that was satisfying, but because she was already telling people it was a setup. Her favorite trick: make herself the victim before anyone else gets to define her. Wednesday night, I took a seat at my desk in the garage, opened the June Justice folder, and began sorting the evidence into 3 piles. Professional misconduct, for her firm. Personal betrayal, for him. Social fallout, for friends, family, HOA. Each pile had its own delivery list. I wasn't just burning one bridge. I was dismantling the whole network she'd built to insulate herself. Thursday, she came home with a face like someone had just told her the power was being shut off. She didn't even take her coat off before sitting down across from me at the dining table. "Was it you?" she asked quietly. "Was what me?" I replied, without looking up from my laptop. Her voice sharpened. "Don't play dumb. The emails, the photos, the whatever you've been doing." I met her eyes. "If you're asking whether I sent anyone false information, the answer's no. Everything they've got is true." Her expression flickered. Anger, fear, calculation. "Why?" she asked finally. "Because," I said, "you built your life on a set of rules where I was supposed to lose quietly. I don't play by those rules anymore." She pushed back from the table, muttering something about a lawyer. I didn't bother reminding her that any lawyer worth their retainer would take one look at my folder and tell her to settle for silence. Friday afternoon, I made the next delivery. A USB drive to her parents' mailbox, no note. The files were labeled simply, "In case you ever wondered." That evening, she called her mother in the upstairs bedroom. I didn't hear every word, but I caught enough. Her mother's voice raised. Vanessa crying. Something about, "How could you embarrass us like this?" For the first time in months, I saw her rattled to the point of losing her composure. No deflection, no smirk, just a woman suddenly aware the ground under her was giving way. Saturday, I met a friend for coffee, Ben from the HOA. He'd heard plenty by now, and he was practically vibrating with the thrill of being the one everyone came to for the story. "She's been telling people you're controlling," he said, sipping his cappuccino. "But the receipts, the photos, no one's buying it." I didn't ask him to spread anything. I didn't have to. Gossip, once sparked, doesn't need a handler. Sunday evening, she cornered me in the kitchen. "You're destroying me," she said, voice low but trembling. I set down the glass I was drying. "No, I'm just showing people what you've been hiding. You're destroying yourself." She took a step closer, eyes searching my face. "What do you want?" The old me would have answered with something about honesty, respect, maybe even reconciliation. The man standing there now just said, "You'll find out." Monday morning, I triggered the final professional blow. A sealed envelope to the state licensing board with every hotel receipt, the time-stamped selfies, and a short cover letter outlining her client entertainment practices. All of it cross-referenced with her company card statements. By Wednesday, I got word from a mutual acquaintance that her license was under review. Translation: she was one bad headline away from losing it. That night, she tried a new tactic: softness. Cooked my favorite meal. Poured me a drink. "I know I've made mistakes," she said, voice syrupy. "Maybe we could just talk about how to fix this." I took a bite, chewed slowly. "This isn't a problem you fix, Vanessa. This is a problem you survive. Or don't." She blinked, the sweetness cracking. "You're a cold man." I smiled faintly. Took me long enough. Thursday, her lover finally reached out. A text from an unfamiliar number. "We need to meet." She's losing it. I didn't respond right away. When I did, I simply wrote, "I bet she is." Friday morning, I walked into the garage office, opened the final version of the June Justice folder, and added one more file. A compilation video, every screenshot, every audio clip, every damning piece of evidence, edited into a clean, 10-minute reel. Title card: The Truth About Vanessa. It wasn't for social media. It wasn't for the public. It was for one specific audience. The people she valued most. Her so-called inner circle. Saturday night, I uploaded it to a private link and sent it in a group text to 12 people. Celeste, her managing broker, the HOA board, 2 of her cousins, and him. No caption, no explanation. Just the link. Sunday morning, the fallout began. She woke up to a phone that wouldn't stop buzzing. Every time she answered, the conversation ended with her yelling or crying. By noon, she'd locked herself in the bedroom. By 3, I saw her through the window, sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. Her phone was in her lap, but she wasn't touching it. The game wasn't over. But for the first time, I knew she understood the score. At BY Monday morning, she'd switched from anger to bargaining. I came into the kitchen to find her sitting at the table with 2 mugs of coffee, like we were about to have some warm, healing talk. "I don't know how we got here," she said, staring at the steam rising from her cup. "But we could maybe stop before it goes any further." I sat down, took a sip of mine, and said, "It's already gone further than you think." She reached across the table. "I know I hurt you." You didn't just hurt me, Vanessa," I interrupted. "You built your whole life on the assumption I'd never hit back." Her hand froze midair. "So what now? You just destroy me." I leaned back, studying her. "That's the thing about destruction. It's never just one person doing it. You've been helping the whole time." That day, I moved out of the master bedroom. She didn't argue. She just watched me carry my pillow and a blanket to the guest room. And she knew that meant something she couldn't name yet, but she would. Within a week, the invitations stopped coming. Her phone still rang, but now she'd answer, listen for 30 seconds, and hang up without a word. I'd see her scrolling through Facebook late at night, jaw tight, watching her friends post photos from gatherings she wasn't invited to. The captions were the real daggers. "Great night with the best people. Loyalty is everything." One afternoon, I accidentally left a printout of the HOA's upcoming agenda on the counter. Item 7. Discussion of member conduct. She saw it. She didn't ask. By Friday, she tried a new angle, telling me she was thinking of starting fresh somewhere else. I encouraged it. "Sounds smart," I said. "New town, new people, new reputation." She didn't like that last word. Monday morning, my lawyer called. The papers were ready. It wasn't just divorce filings. It was a financial trap she'd walk right into. Over the past few months, I'd moved every joint asset into my name or a trust. The only thing left with both our names on it was the house, which I was offering to let her keep in exchange for full separation of all other assets and liabilities. She signed without blinking. She thought she'd won the house. She didn't notice until weeks later that the mortgage was adjustable, the taxes were overdue, and the HOA had just voted in a special assessment to cover road repairs. By then, the ink was dry. Her lover? The USB I sent him had done its work. He'd stopped answering her calls. Word was, he'd moved 2 towns over, started seeing someone else, and made sure she knew it. The day the divorce was finalized, she tried one last scene. Met me at a coffee shop, looking tired but still wearing the armor. Makeup perfect, hair just so, smile practiced. "You got what you wanted," she said. "House is mine. You're free. Can we just be done now?" I set my coffee down, slid an envelope across the table. She didn't touch it right away. "What's this?" "Your new listing," I said. "Figured you'd want the heads up before it goes public." She opened it. Inside was a printout of her own house, her address, her photos, posted as foreclosure auction. Her smile cracked for the first time in months. "You?" "I didn't do it," I said. "You did. All I did was let you run your own game until it burned itself down." She sat back, staring at the paper like it was written in another language. I finished my coffee, stood, and said, "Here's the thing, Vanessa. You always thought I was one step behind you. But the truth is, I was never chasing you at all." And I left her there, a woman with a house she couldn't afford, friends she couldn't call, a career she couldn't repair, and the knowledge that none of it had been taken from her. She'd handed it over herself. That was the end of Vanessa's game, and the start of mine, the one where I live quietly, keep my steps light, and smile just enough that people wonder what I know that they don't. Because nothing unsettles a liar more than realizing the person they underestimated never once broke a sweat.